you really did take care of us. I mean, we just follow you anyway, man.
Okay. Where we going?
Wherever
Let's go. No, let's stay here.
So we're here with some of the team behind Roofman. Thank you so much for being here. Derek, I'll start with a question for you.
Yeah.
Your previous films have all been these really kind of bruising dramas, and this film has a lightness to it that feels new for you. And I'm wondering where that comes from, and does it even feel like a distinction to you?
Yeah, I definitely made a conscious choice with this movie. I had finished my last thing, I Know This Much Is True, and I felt like I had completed something in my life where I was making these deadly serious movies, and I felt like I had said everything I needed to say in that tone. And I spent like a year trying to find a movie that would kind of reflect the movies that I grew up with, the movies I used to love, that showed like the possibility of movies. And I heard this story about Jeffrey Manchester, a guy who'd robbed 45 McDonald's and then got sentenced to 45 years in prison, and then broke out of prison and lived in a toy store. And I thought, okay, a criminal living in a toy store who robs McDonald's, who makes sure people have their jackets on before he puts them in the fridge. And I was like, this doesn't seem like it can be that serious. And I was thinking about tragedy, and like the flip side of tragedy is comedy. And so I just thought if I could make a movie that kind of, if you like flip a quarter up in the air and it's tragedy, comedy, it just goes up, spins. I thought I could make a movie that would spin between the two.
And then Kirsten Channing, the fact that this is based on a true story, does that impact how you prepare? Like, do you do a lot of research? Did you meet people? And then how does it impact your performance?
No, because you really have a relationship with the person you played. I less so.
Jeff, I did get to speak to. I never got to meet him. I didn't get approved to meet him until after we started filming. I just didn't have time to go down and do it. We were on a pretty hot and heavy pace. But I talked to him a lot on the phone. You can only talk to him for 15 minutes at a time, and he's got to call you. You can't call him. And it's a really interesting thing. You'll be like, picking up your daughter from school or something, and then all of a sudden, Jeffrey Manchester's calling, and then you're like, oh, hold on, teacher. And then you have to have a conversation and get as much as you can. And it is really terrifying to know that someone is giving you their I guess it's not just their experiences, but it's also their process afterwards that's had so much time to really think about what they've done and what's gotten them there. So you're not really realizing or getting it real time, in a way, and trying to read through that and who he was and try to kind of like place like maybe who he's turned into comparatively to what he's saying, and like is it clear because he's a bit of a con man, and you're like, all right, are you telling me what I need to hear or what I want to hear? But he's so good at it. He really takes care of you on these phone calls. I don't know how to explain it in any other way. I think he's obviously done it so much that he knows how to manage the time. He cares about you and your life, and like has, I was like, look, I want you to be able to ask questions about me as well. I don't want this to just be me grilling you about what happened and tell me all the little details. And there was whole conversations where we never talked about him at all. Like, we talked about making movies. He loves movies, and we had multiple conversations with just Spielberg. Like, and we'd be like, all right, that's your 15 minutes. And we're like, all right, see, goodbye, and then just cuts you off. So, but I did tell him, I was like, I'm always nervous because I played two people that were real. One I never met, and two, the second person I did, and they were on set a lot. And I realized that it's really tough sometimes because they have an expectation of, or something that they kind of hope that they want out of it or whatever. And I think Jeff's is very, very different than Mark, the other guy I played. And I was just like, look, this isn't going to be you. I'm obviously, it can't be. Like, it's going to be some weird baby between Derek, you, and me. Or sorry, your story, Derek, and then me trying to like play something that the story is telling in a way. And I hope he's gonna like it. Like he just loves movies so much, and I think he's gonna get it. I think he's gonna get what Derek was doing.
One thing I would say, can I just say one thing about that? He did see some of the trailer in prison. He didn't see the whole thing because it doesn't have the internet. But they showed a little piece of the trailer on the nightly news, and he asked me, he said, hey Derek, I saw Channing in like his underwear with like a pool floaty around his waist and like a teddy bear on his shoulders and sunglasses on. He was like, "Where'd you guys get that idea?" And I was like, "Well, we built this whole toy store," and I was setting up a shot, and all of a sudden Channing came around the corner in his underwear with a pool floaty and a teddy bear on his shoulders.
And rollies. Heelys, sorry.
And sunglasses.
I was just playing around, and we were like, well, we're going to shoot this. I mean, you can't leave me in a toy store. The whole thing was a real toy store. You could shoot 360, and like, you can't leave me in a toy store for that long without shenanigans.
But Jeff said, "I'm so happy to hear that." He was like, "When you live in a toy store for 6 months, it helps connect you to your inner child, and I'm really happy that Channing got a chance to do that." So I think he's going to be happier.
It's a nice thing to
And
say.
Kirsten, what was the experience like for you? Because the movie gives a certain attention to Lee's life outside of her relationship with John/Jeff, as far as like her children, her life at her church. Like, what did it mean to you the way the character was conceived?
You know, I always pick director first, so I would have done any role with Derek. And then it was me building, you know, what this woman, what Jeffrey meant to this woman. And in real life, it was a beautiful moment in her life. She really fell in love with Jeffrey. So to me, it was about making that feel super real to anyone watching, and how meaningful this relationship really was in her life, and that it wasn't something she was bitter about, or that it really was a gift. And so, you know, I wanted to make the most colorful person I could in a very short amount of time. You know, she's a very kind of feisty Southern lady, but like her daughters always come first, and she's like a real mom who's pretty single and doesn't have much help, and she has a real community in her church. So I wanted all of that. My goal is always to feel the most authentic, you know, in the most authentic way I can.
Because Derek, how do you want viewers to sort of feel about the relationship in a way? I know for myself, when I was watching, like, I wasn't sure how much I'm supposed to be rooting for these two kids to make it work.
Well, I will say that I wasn't sure what story I was going to tell for a while. You know, I'd had like a couple hundred phone calls with Jeff over a couple of years, and then I started talking to people in his life, and one of the people I talked to was the real Lee, who Kirsten plays, and I didn't know how she was going to respond to Jeff's story when I talked to her. I kind of assumed maybe she'd be a little angry with him, but I got on a call with her, and she told me about this time and this moment with Jeff, and it was like this jewel of her life. And she said that Jeff came into her life at a perfect moment with her and her kids, and that he entered their world, and when he left them stronger than when he found them. And she handled it with so much grace and so much care, and I thought that that's the movie, that's the moment. You know, humans are complicated. Yeah. I think movies make it easy to say, here's the good guy and here's the bad guy. And I think what Jeff is, he has a little bit of everything. And I think kind of the real Lee, her grace and her ability to, you know, I think you want to root for this love story. You know, it's a second chance for all of them, and I think the thing that's most important for all of these people in the movie is their children. Mm-hmm. And I think Jeff cares about his children, and when he can't be with his children, he really tries to be that person for Lee's children. And I think Lee, her first and foremost, you know, is her children. And I know for the three of us sitting on this couch, like in our real lives, and one of the reasons I think we all connected so much is like in our own lives, that's the most important thing for all of us too, is our kids.
I remember you said something to me on set. I came to you, I was like, I just really miss my kids. And you were like, thank you for being here. Mm-hmm. Like, it was just so, Derek's just a very gracious, very real, good human to work with, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I mean, you really did take care of us. I mean, we just follow you anyway, man.
Okay. Where are we going?
Let's go.
Let's stay here for a little bit longer.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the only thing I would add to that is just, I want I would always think like, God, who would Jeff have been if he found Lee first? You know, before he made his bad decisions. You know, would he still been the guy that couldn't get out of his own way, or would the love of somebody that really loved him unconditionally been able to like help him like not make some really terrible decisions? So it was just too late. You know, it was, you know, too little, too late.
Can I say one thing? Sure. Jeff is a crazy, frustrating character because if there's an ant, he kills it with a sledgehammer. Yeah. He overdoes things,
even in love,
and that's just his nature. And so we all know people like that, and it doesn't mean you love them any less. And I think one of the other things for me is like I was talking to the pastor of the church, Ron, the real guy. And he was telling me about the Bible, and he said the Old Testament's all about judgment and the New Testament's about grace. And he said that in his life he tries to lead with grace. And I thought to myself, Jeff, the real Jeff, has been judged very harshly by society. He's in prison for 45 years. There's not he's been judged. And I felt like the point of our movie and what I hope audiences can do when they see him is treat him with a little grace.
Because Kirsten, you've been really candid in interviews recently talking about the fact that you do have a family to support and sometimes money is like part of your decision-making process. Is that something that's changed for you over the course of your career?
None of my decisions are, so that's why I'm like, maybe I should shift. What's that side of the world like? No, I mean, obviously everything gets blown out of proportion when it's clickbait, but yeah, I would like to do a big fun movie, whether it's like a kids movie or something different, but my art is the artist's heart, and I just follow filmmakers really is my journey in my career, and so yeah, we'll see.
And Janie, what is that like for you? Like, how do you sort of like balance out those sort of decisions that you have to make in your career?
I've been lucky enough to do some movies that have made money, you know, just honestly. And I think some of those movies were successful and some of them absolutely weren't. I think a couple of them taught me a big lesson that never to do anything that you aren't going to actually enjoy the actual time that you spent, because there's no price on time. And especially when you have a daughter or sons or just any kids in general, that time is even exponentially more important. The stuff that you don't get to be with them, and there's no regularity to your life. There's no routine. I don't just get to wake up every day and take my daughter to school and then pick her up, and that, you know, sometimes has a price on it in money, and sometimes it has a price on it in what I get to go do with unbelievably talented and beautiful humans. And that is it's not work. I always try not to say like Dad has to go to work. I say Dad gets to go to work, because I really love what I do. And I really love movies. I really love storytelling. And it's not always been that way. I've had a real kind of like journey with like, I don't know, do I know what I'm even doing? Why am I doing this? Like, am I worthy to do this? And you know, I found my way back to this. But this movie was a huge movie for me, in that I really do love this storytelling thing, no matter what form it's in.
And Kirsten, there's a moment in this movie that really is sticking with me, where the two of you are hugging and you are crying and your tear falls down your cheek and your mascara starts to run like so perfectly. And I don't want to like ruin any movie magic here, but are you a good movie crier? Like, can you cry on cue?
Sorry, this question is so...
I used to think. Can I say like one thing?
You answer that for me.
Let me.
Yeah.
I used to think when I was first started making movies that if like an actor would cry, I'd be like, yes, I did it.
Yeah.
I made them cry, and then I started to think like, that's like, there's nothing to be proud of.
I don't think about like I have to cry in this scene. It's like the whole point of
one of the things I write those things into a script, like cry, laugh, whatever, but when I give it to actors, I take those moments out because those are all expectations.
I take them out for myself.
Yeah, and I don't want them to have any expectations for anything they do. That last moment that you speak of was a moment they weren't supposed to hug. There was no point in the script where they hugged. And there was a moment on set where And we shot that in a real prison, and everyone else in that room was all real prisoners and real family members of prisoners. And there was real prison guards there, and we were all having this moment of communion between families. And of course, if you're in that kind of situation, you're not supposed to touch each other. You have to ask permission. And so there was a moment where Channing asked the guards, "Can I hug her?" And he said yes, because you can have maybe 20 seconds. And that moment was a 20-second surprise, accidental, speed of life moment.
Yeah, we did only 2 takes of that scene. And also, I remember I do dream work, and I did a dream assignment just for that scene, which I'm not usually that person. But man, I went so in depth that week. I remember spending so much time on this dream just for this last scene. So whatever I cooked was ready to be eaten. You know what I mean? Like whatever I
Really
cooked
good
in
way
my
to put
soul,
it.
I was like,
really good way to put it.
I was like, you know, but that's what excites me about being an artist. So yes, I'm not someone who, I'm not, like you said,
Premeditated.
No, I'm not looking for that kind of, that's not the type of actor I am.
No. It was in that moment, once it was over, we were shooting on film. We ran out of film. You could hear the film go through the gate. And Kirsten said, "You're not going to make us do that again, are you?" And I said, "No, we're done." And that was it. That was, we wrapped Kirsten
that was Kirsten's last scene of the movie.
last possible moment. As a filmmaker, there's no better gift to work with actors who are so present and willing to be alive in that moment. That was not faking it. That was acting in the way that life is full of acting.
I think in that moment we were just so together.
Yes, it was
We
living.
were.
It was
We have
living.
a photo of document.
Yeah,
We
that's right.
Yeah.
I have it. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't.
Felt like I felt like all of our souls were like it was a very, yeah.
There are some scenes where, especially when you're by yourself or something, you have triggers or whatever things that if the scene isn't taking you there, that you can fall back on, I guess, as an actor. But in that type of a moment, you just stay with the person, and whatever is like the truth is the truth. And that was to take truth right there.